Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Finally getting around to making this What's Next video for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's an interesting situation for Philly. They're a team that really impressed in the regular season, and a team that going into the NBA playoffs, I had winning the Eastern Conference. I thought they were going to make it past the Wizards in the first round pretty easily, past the Hawks pretty easily, and then win a tough series against either the Nets or the Bucks. And ultimately, they fell to the Hawks in the second round. And while it's not the finish that they were hoping for, there was a lot of promise shown in this season. Particularly, Joel Embiid established himself as an MVP-type player this year. It's something that a lot of people, me included, have been expecting of him to make a leap at some point, but this was the best we've ever seen Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris stepped up in a big way, proving that his contract wasn't a fluke and that he is an all-star caliber guy. He just barely missed out on an all-star appearance. Seth Curry had a career year. Matisse Thybulle established himself as a defensive player of the year, probably winner at some point in his career. There was a lot of pluses for this team. However, there's such a sour taste in the Sixers fans' mouths because of the way it all ended. And the question is, how do the Sixers now go from good team and great regular season team to an elite team in the playoffs that can win a championship? And a lot of people have been saying that the process is dead or that the process has failed, and I don't think that's the case. I think the process is the Joel Embiid era. When Embiid at some point either retires or if he leaves the Sixers somehow, that's when you can say the process has ended and it fails if they don't win a championship. However, there's a lot, like I said, a lot of promise still in this team between those guys. A great GM in Daryl Morey making some good draft picks recently, with Tyrese Maxey stepping up in a big way, and like I said, Matisse Thybulle seems like a future Defensive Player of the Year winner. There's a lot of promise in Philly. However, in the face of promise, there has to be some disappointment. Because otherwise, if everything was promising, the Sixers right now would be in the finals facing the Phoenix Suns. And of course, that's not the case, and the question is why. There are some holes on this team. And the biggest question mark on this entire team going forward in this offseason is Ben Simmons. I don't need to tell you that if you've been on Twitter at all, or if you even watch the TV or any sports show for like more than 5 minutes, I'm sure you've seen some conversation about Ben Simmons' future in Philly. And if you want to hear my take on it, here it is. Of course, they have two options. You can keep him or you can trade him. Those are the two options that every team has with every player. But it's really interesting in Ben Simmons' case. If you keep him, he has to become better. Ben Simmons isn't as bad as people on Twitter are going to tell you. Ben Simmons is a Defensive Player of the Year runner-up from this season. He's a great transition player and an elite passer. He's good at those three things. However, his offensive limitations are so killer for this Sixers team that I don't know if he can stick around. If he's going to stick around beyond this season or beyond this offseason, he's got to be so much better in the half court. Like I said, he's a good transition player. He can attack the basket, and due to his frame and his height, he is a monster in the transition. But as soon as the game slows down and goes into the half court like playoff games typically do, he becomes nearly useless on the offensive end. If he's not playmaking, he's not effective at all. No one's guarding him on the three-point line, and even if he did have a decent three-point shot, right now there's something in his mental that's telling him don't shoot the ball. If you don't know, I went to Game 7 with my brother Ryan. He's a Philly fan. I'll drop the link to his Twitter in the description below, so you can go check him out. If you're a Philly fan, he's a must follow. But while we were at the game, the whole time I was thinking to myself, this could be Ben Simmons' last game in Philly potentially. Because if they lose this series, something big is probably going to change. And Ben Simmons, having disappointed throughout the first couple rounds, looked like he was going to be that piece. So, the whole game, I kept my eye on Ben Simmons, and I was looking at what he did on the offensive possessions, especially when he didn't have the ball. And even when he did have the ball, was he ever looking to shoot? And the answer was no. I've been a long defender of the Joel Embiid-Ben Simmons pairing, but when you have Ben Simmons who is afraid to shoot the ball, that's a big problem. Joel Embiid is so effective, but in the playoffs you need someone else to step up, and Ben Simmons is supposed to be that sidekick. He's supposed to be the guy that came alongside Joel Embiid. Those are their two guys. Those are supposed to be their cornerstones for this team that's supposed to win a championship. And instead, we saw a play where, towards the end of the game, Ben Simmons had a wide open shot under the basket, and instead of taking it, he passed out. And Joel Embiid mentioned that in his post-game press conference. They asked him, when did it feel like the momentum shifted towards the Hawks? And he cited that specific moment. And that comment, alongside what Doc Rivers mentioned, where he said that he wasn't sure if Ben Simmons could be the point guard on a championship team, those comments make me think that this thing's over. So while they can keep Ben Simmons, he's got to make some massive improvements in the offseason if they do want to keep him, so that this team can be as effective as possible. But their general manager is Daryl Morey. And Daryl Morey spent a lot of years in Houston, and he didn't win a ring, and it seems like he's very eager to win one, and he's a good general manager. I think he's going to trade Ben Simmons, and I think the Ben Simmons era in Philly is over. So, if that is the case, what trade do they make for him? And that's where it gets really tough. Us as fans don't truly know the value of Ben Simmons. However, there are about two camps right now on Twitter, which is about my main platform. If you don't follow me on Twitter, go follow me on Twitter. Most of you are probably from there right now. But there are about two camps. There are the people who think Ben Simmons has absolutely no trade value and that he sucks, which is not the case at all. Or there are people like me who think he still has decent trade value and there's plenty of room to improve because he's only 24 years old. And I think that's just the truth. There have been a lot of reports that even though a lot of NBA fans are super down on Ben Simmons, between like the Shanghai Sharks memes and the memes about him not willing to shoot or whatever, he still has value. Like I mentioned, defensive player of the year caliber guy, transition player, good playmaker, he's got value to an NBA team. He's just got to develop some semblance of an offensive game, and I think he still can do that. He just might need a change of scenery. Maybe Philly's not holding him accountable the way that he needs to be held accountable. Maybe he's just done with Philly. Either way, I think a breakup is kind of in order. But when you move him, you need to be careful to not screw yourselves over. Because a 24-year-old guy who has shown a ton of flashes of greatness, I think still has good trade value. Not as high as it once was, where he was the centerpiece of a James Harden trade potentially at the beginning of the season, but still decent. So if you package him and maybe like one of those young guys and a pick with his contract, you can get a star caliber guy. But you shouldn't settle. If there is no good trade out there for Ben Simmons, knowing Daryl Morey, he's not going to give in. You shouldn't trade him for like a CJ McCollum. That's a trade I've seen going around a lot. I don't like that. Pairing CJ McCollum and Seth Curry, who I think will be their starting shooting guard going forward, had a career year like I mentioned. Those two, I don't think, make for a good enough backcourt to win a championship with the supporting cast. There's no playmaking there, and there's especially no defense whatsoever. While CJ McCollum is going to help with your offensive issues, then your defensive issues become a whole nother problem. Joel Embiid is a guy that was in Defensive Player of the Year consideration for a lot of the year, and you do have Matisse Thybulle, who's a monster on the wings, and like I said, I think will win a Defensive Player of the Year at some point. I don't think that's enough. You need some backcourt defense, especially when you're probably your biggest rival out east, if the Sixers are trying to win a championship, has Kyrie Irving and James Harden. You've got to find a way to stop them. So I don't think CJ McCollum's the answer. There's a trade for Malcolm Brogdon, which I like a little bit better. He can do some scoring, he can play some defense, and he adds some playmaking. I like that better, but if I'm the Sixers, I need more than Malcolm Brogdon. I'm a UVA fan. I'm a huge Malcolm Brogdon fan. But right now, Ben Simmons, I think, has more value than Malcolm Brogdon. So I think the Pacers have to throw something else in there, and that's not a notion that a lot of people are a fan of. So, when evaluating Ben Simmons, keep in mind his value. He is still 24, and he's still really good at multiple aspects of the game. It's just the offense, and I think there is some way to fix it. I think half of it is mental. I think the free throw thing is getting on him, and his inability to finish. I think right now he's just in a bad place mentally. Maybe an offseason will help fix him, and I think the Sixers are going to go to him and say, hey, you need to work on these things and fix them big time, or you're gone. And if that doesn't wake him up, then I guess just nothing is in Philly, and he's going to get traded anyways. So that's my thoughts on the Ben Simmons situation right now. I don't want to harp on it for any more of the video because, like I said, I talked about this beforehand, and it's been all over Twitter and stuff. So let me know what you think about Ben Simmons in the comment section below. But finishing out the rest of this team, Doc Rivers, I would expect would be back as the coach. I don't think they fire him after one season, especially when they had such a good regular season. I know it didn't quite translate in the playoffs, but I think that's more of a personnel thing than maybe a Doc Rivers thing, or maybe I'm just blind and defending Doc Rivers at this point. Who knows? But in terms of this team, I think what they need is more depth. I think Shake Milton's a solid piece. I think Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey are solid pieces. George Hill didn't quite turn into the player they were hoping he would be in Philly. He just didn't quite seem like the guy that we saw on the Thunder to start the season. Danny Green could be back, but I'm not sure if he will be since he's turning 35 in this upcoming season. Mike Scott, probably gone. I don't see him coming back. Dwight Howard could come back as a backup big, but I wouldn't be surprised if they search elsewhere, once again with him turning 36 now. Furkan Korkmaz will be back. He is a solid shot creator, and that's what they need on this team, some three-point shooting as well. Shake Milton, he's going to be here. Isaiah Joe showed some promise when the Sixers were really beat up at the start of the season. So there are some promising pieces and a lot of good role players on this team. So I think the Sixers are in good position to make trades or bring in new free agents to help those guys. Philly just showed that they have the potential to be a championship level team sooner than later. So guys are going to want to come play in Philly. It's a notable franchise. It's got a long legacy. So people are going to come play in Philly. The biggest thing is, what trades do they make? Obviously, the Ben Simmons one is the big one. But do you maybe try and package like a Tyrese Maxey and like another contract to try and grab like a solid role player? What do you do with the Sixers team? And to be honest, I don't really know. They don't have a ton of cap space. Obviously, between Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons, they're pretty much capped out. But with Danny Green's $15 million coming off the books, as well as the potential to maybe shed some George Hill money, I think his money is unguaranteed. There is potential to add in like a free agent through the mid-level exception or some lower-level guys on smaller contracts. So I think this Sixers team, if you're asking me where they are next season, I think they're going to be back in contention. I think Embiid is once again going to be an MVP candidate. It's just a question if Ben Simmons is on this roster. And if he's not, who do they trade him for? And to me, that's probably the most interesting thing I'm looking at this offseason. So those are my thoughts on the Philadelphia 76ers and the Ben Simmons situation. Let me know what you think about all of this. I guess a quick fun story to let you know where Philly fans are at right now. As I was leaving the game, Game 7, there was a Sixers fan wearing a Ben Simmons jersey, and he ripped it in half and threw it in the trash, yelling, "I hate this guy." So that's where Sixers fans are at. In addition, my brother Ryan, who I mentioned earlier as a Philly fan, I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to mention in this video, or if he wanted to come in and give any input on the Sixers, and he said, no, I hate them right now. So that's where Sixers fans are at right now. If you're a Sixers fan watching this, hope you're in a better place at the moment. Let me know what you would like to see your team do. Even if you're not a Sixers fan, what are you trading Ben Simmons for? What are you looking for in a trade package? Do you think he has trade value, or do you think he just sucks like some people do? Let me know all that in the comment section below. Make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I will see you later. Real one, say it back.